You stubborn one.
Geralt, I shall help you.
Step back.
Stop telling me what to do.
I've held off making today's video for a while, simply because we don't actually know all that much about this character, and I thought that an entire video on this character might not be entirely warranted, but since I made my video on Gels, I've had a lot of people ask me who this character is. Is he a general, like Gels, Imlerith, or Caranthea, or is he something completely different? In today's video, I hope to address questions like that through theories, and also tell you everything we know about this character. This character, of course, being Nithral, of the Wild Hunt. To begin with, Nithral is not a character that is referenced in any of the Witcher books, so he is completely a creation of CD Projekt Red. On top of that, Nithral only appears at one major point in The Witcher 3, and as I'm sure you'll know if you've played The Witcher 3, he does not appear in the rest of the game. For those of you that may have not reached that part of the game, or may simply have forgotten, this is because Nithral is slain by Geralt of Rivia and Keira Metz. Anyway, during the quest Wandering in the Dark, Nithral is first seen to be accompanying Eredin and Caranthea as they explore some elven ruins in search for evidence of Ciri's whereabouts. The second time we see him is very similar to the first. He is simply travelling through the ruins in search of information on Ciri with Eredin and Caranthea. It is in the third encounter with this character that more information is revealed about him. In this third encounter, Nithral had been left behind by Eredin and Caranthea as a way to slow down the progress Keira and Geralt were making, and I suppose it was also an attempt to try and stop them in their tracks. You know, have Nithral just kill them. The fight with Nithral acts as our first proper encounter with the Wild Hunt in The Witcher 3. We do encounter the Wild Hunt earlier on in the game, but I mean our first proper fight and actual encounter physically with the Wild Hunt. And during this fight with Nithral, it is revealed to us that he clearly possesses some unique abilities. Similar to how, say, Caranthea, Imlerith, and Eredin are all able to do things the average Wild Hunt warrior simply can't. Nithral's abilities are shown to us during the fight, and these abilities seem to include the ability to summon the White Frost and the Wild Hunt Hounds, the ability to teleport, and the ability to create an impenetrable force field around himself for short periods of time, and whilst this force field is around him, he is able to restore his health. He is also, like many other members of the Wild Hunt, very strong, and he wields a two-handed axe. And this is simply because of how big the NL race is physically. I mean, you can see the examples with everyone. Look at Gels and also look at Imlerith. They're all much taller. Another point worth mentioning is that unlike the normal Wild Hunt warriors, Nithral's armor is unique, similar to how Caranthea, Imlerith, and Eredin's armor is all unique to them. So, from the information I have presented to you, I think it's quite clear that Nithral is a cut above the rest of the general Wild Hunt warriors, as the general Wild Hunt warriors all seem to possess the same basic abilities and wear the same basic Wild Hunt armor with little to no variation. So, what is Nithral then? From what we gather in the game, he is not a Wild Hunt general like Imlerith or Caranthea. My main reason for stating this is that when Avallac'h is talking to the player, he brings up all of Eredin's generals at one point or another, but he never brings up Nithral. For this reason, I would say that Nithral most likely isn't a general. And in all honesty, it seems like Avallac'h might even not know of his existence at all, as he doesn't mention anything about how he was slain by Geralt, and therefore might not even known of this Wild Hunt member's existence. Or perhaps he just wasn't important enough. For this reason, I would say that Nithral most likely isn't a general. However, you could argue that Avallac'h had been out of the loop for a while, and Nithral may have been a newly appointed general that he was simply unaware of, which is entirely possible, but personally, I feel as if Avallac'h would keep tabs on things like that, for his own and Ciri's safety. Also, I think another thing worth noting is that Nithral did not appear in any of the posters with Eredin, Caranthea, and Imlerith. There's actually this really cool poster of Eredin, Caranthea, and Imlerith all together, and I think that's meant to symbolize Eredin with his Wild Hunt generals. Obviously, Gels wasn't on there, but he's not really part of the generals in the same way that Imlerith and Caranthea are, as they actually go out with Eredin on the actual hunts and things. So if Nithral was a general, he would most likely appear with those two as well, as he would have gone out with Eredin to do stuff with the Wild Hunt. So, what does that leave us with? Personally, I would say that leaves us with two options that aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. To explain further, I would say that the first option is that Nithral is simply a powerful Wild Hunt warrior. Consider this, in fantasy and in the real world, we have lots of different characters and people with a lot of variance in skill. Perhaps Nithral is simply a very skilled warrior and therefore possesses unique abilities befitting to his skill. To put it simply, not every powerful person is in a position of power. For my second option, I actually took a little bit of inspiration from the relationship between Avallac'h and one of his Wild Hunt generals, Corinthia. I won't fully explain that whole story, but basically, Corinthia trained under Avallac'h in his youth. Perhaps Nithral is simply a promising member of the NL race who is training under Eredin, or one of his generals, to potentially one day become a general. That would also explain why he was with Eredin and Corinthia during the search for Ciri. Perhaps this was experience for him, seeing what the higher-ups of the Wild Hunt do. Of course, you could also argue, for my other theory, that they had him with them because he is simply a cut above the average soldier and may prove useful. But personally, based on his skill with magic, I could definitely see him having gained some of those skills under someone like Corinthia. I mean, Corinthia was said to be one of the most powerful magic users in the Witcher universe. He was literally selectively bred into existence for these abilities. Before I finish, I also just wanted to mention some of the other aspects involving this character in The Witcher 3, just so I don't leave anything out. To begin with, Nithral drops a Wild Hunt warrior's sword and a diagram for an item known as the Angrenian Cuirass. I don't believe that this cuirass has any particular reason for Nithral dropping it, as it can be found at different points in the game in different forms, but it's a fairly decent item regardless, so you may as well pick it up if you beat him. One point that I also personally find interesting is that a lot of players who fight Nithral seem to state that he is a harder boss than some of the later fights with the various other members of the Wild Hunt. Personally, I don't think that this has any bearing on the lore. For example, that lore-wise he may be, say, more powerful than Imlerith or Corinthia. I simply put this down to the fact that not only is this fight early on in the game, so new players are not fully accustomed to the combat, but I also believe that a lot of people may reach this quest fairly quickly and might not be as over-leveled as they are when fighting the later bosses. But then again, I could be wrong. Perhaps he is a better fighter than the Wild Hunt generals, and perhaps even Eredin himself. Although, based on him being relatively unknown to an important NL elf like, say, Avallac'h, I doubt this. And to close off, I think one thing we can say for certain is that Nithral is clearly just a cut above the average Wild Hunt warrior, be that because of one of my theories or because of something else. Anyway, those are just two theories that I came up with for today's video, but I would love to hear what you guys think, as honestly, finding out about or enriching the stories of characters like these is what I think Witcher lore is all about, as Witcher lore is just trying to get more in depth in this world that we all think is just awesome. But yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed today's video anyway. As always guys, if you've enjoyed today's video, I really appreciate you liking it. These videos take me a long time to make, and liking it is just really kind. If this is the first video you're finding on my channel, I'd really appreciate you subscribing, as that really does help me out. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter, Twitch, join the Reddit and Discord, and finally, as always, a big thank you to the Patreon pledges. You guys are honestly amazing, and it's very, very common what you do. You're all just so awesome. I just want to thank you all so much, and just thank you to all of you for watching today's video. I really enjoy making these, and I hope I'll see you all in the next one. So anyway, have an awesome rest of the week, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.